Hey everyone, Tucker Carlson feels very comfortable as a Christian in Saudi Arabia.
For whatever it's worth, a pretty fervent Christian, and I feel completely comfortable here in the seat of Islam. Not because, right? I mean, and why is that? And just saying that is a threat somehow to some people who are propagandists and liars. And
I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and why is Tucker Carlson going around saying Islamic societies are great for Christians? Let's first of all set out the context here where he is making that statement. 2, get into some of the facts, and then 3, describe the deeper ideological agenda. So he said this a week or so ago at a fancy real estate conference in Saudi Arabia, of all things. You know who else was there? Hillary Clinton. So the whole point of this event, obviously, was to promote Saudi Arabia and specifically Saudi Arabia's real estate. And the reason the organizers invited Tucker Carlson was because they thought he would be helpful in the cause of promoting Saudi Arabia. And sure enough, he was. So, of course, he was comfortable. He was an honored guest serving a useful purpose for them. They're going to take every possible measure to make him feel comfortable. And that he was indeed comfortable tells us nothing about Saudi society or the religious environment in Saudi Arabia. And if Tucker really wanted to show how incredibly tolerant Saudi Arabia is to Christians, he could have, recited or read John 3:16 from the stage, but he never would have dared offend his hosts in such a way. Now, this is a classic dynamic in history. You get a regime that wants to put its best foot forward, wants to convince people that is much better than it seems. So it courts activists or journalists or prominent people, invites them over, shows them a real good time, a lot of deference, and then trust that they will return to their own societies and propagandize in favor of the foreign regime or foreign society. And that's exactly what's going on here, even though everyone with any sense knows that Saudi Arabia is devoted to repressing Christianity. So let's dip into a State Department report on religious liberty in Saudi Arabia. And the authors of this report, unfortunately, probably weren't invited to speak at any fancy real estate conferences in Saudi Arabia. Quote, the government continued to prohibit the public practice of any non-Islamic religion. According to civil society sources and media reports, non-Muslims and many foreign and local Muslims whose religious practices differed from the form of Sunni Islam promoted by the government could only practice their religion in private and remain vulnerable to detention, discrimination, harassment, and for non-citizens, deportation. There's more. Community members reported that individuals who converted from Islam to Christianity almost always did so in secret, fearing the reactions of family members and the threat of criminal charges up to and including execution. Clearly any Christian convert who fears getting executed should just wrangle an invite to a fancy real estate conference and everything will be fine. Then there's Jordan. Tucker put out a really slickly produced video about how great Jordan is.
I loved going to Jesus's baptism spot on the Jordan, which was remarkable. I love the churches. I was amazed by how much land the government of Jordan has given to Christian churches. I thought that was quite a statement.
Let's go back to the State Department. Here's a little tidbit about Jordan. It's not Saudi Arabia, but still not great. Some converts to Christianity from Islam reported instances of harassment by security officials, in-person and electronic surveillance, and bureaucratic delays or rejections of document requests, including passport applications. Others reported security force members pressured converts to denounce their conversions. So what's going on here? Well, it's bizarre to supposedly be a fierce defender of Western civilization and then be out there making excuses for and defending a non-Western civilization that's hostile to Christianity. What's going on? It was a disaster for the West and for Christians and for other non-Islamic people when the Arab conquest, this great sweeping explosion of Arab power, began in the 7th century. I've written about this. This expansion was one of the most sweeping acts of conquest and successful exercises in colonialism in world history. The Arabs followed up their military conquest with the cultural imperialism still felt today They gobbled up Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. They chipped away at the Byzantine Empire and launched a no-kidding effort to conquer it wholesale that fell just short. They basically took all the Persian Empire. Eventually, they assembled an empire with the greatest territorial extent since the Romans. The historian Dan Jones writes, quote, Syria is one of the first major triumphs of a new power that was about to sweep across the world, branching out to the borders of China and the Atlantic seaboard of Europe, establishing an Islamic state that covered more than 12 million square kilometers. Its armies showed up everywhere, quote, from Central Asia, through the Middle East, North Africa, throughout the Visigothic Iberian Peninsula, and even into southern France. Everywhere they went, they established, quote, Islamic governments, introduced new ways of living, trading, learning, thinking, building, and praying. They worked to Arabize the cultures they took over. Arabization, Jones continues, was gradually followed by conversion across the Muslim-held territories, a shift that can still be seen, felt, and heard in almost every part of the old caliphate in the 21st century. I add, once they had Islam foisted on them, these territories by and large never went back, except in the cases of Spain, Portugal, in Sicily. I guess if Spain were still Islamic today, Tucker Carlson would be at a real estate conference in Madrid saying how comfortable he felt there and how great it was for Christians, no matter how many Christians had been converted to Islam or chased out. So this makes no sense unless, as usual, it all comes back to Israel.
How are Christians in the Holy Land doing? Are they thriving or are they suffering? And the truth has become pretty obvious over the past couple of years, which is in Israel, they are not thriving. Their numbers are not growing. They are shrinking. And there's a huge debate about why. But the bottom line is there are fewer Christians now, far fewer, in absolute numbers and particularly as percentage of population than there were when the state was founded in 1948. And there's a lot of evidence in the last couple of years, particularly since the Gaza war started, and the whole tone of the conversation in this area has changed quite a bit, and the rise of extremism is very noticeable, that those numbers have gotten even smaller.
It's so perverse, you can only laugh. So let's be consistent. Go to the State Department report on Israel. The country's laws and Supreme Court rulings protect the freedoms of conscience, faith, religion, and worship, regardless of an individual's religious affiliation. Now, Israel obviously is a Jewish state. There's contention over holy sites. Christians get caught up in the Arab-Israeli conflict. All that's true and adds a complicating element, but to present Israel as a hellhole for Christians while you're whitewashing all the Islamic suppression of Christianity is just mind-bendingly insane. And Tucker is completely wrong about the numbers. He's either ignorant or he's lying to people, because in 1948, there's something like 35,000 Christians in Israel. Now there's something like 185,000, and the trend has been towards growth. Here's a Times of Israel story around Christmas time, the end of last year. Christian population in Israel is around 184,000 and growing. Israel's Christians account for 1.9% of the country's population and grew by 0.7% from 23 to 24. Some 184,200 Christians currently live in Israel. Okay, these aren't huge numbers, but they're notable given what is happening in the rest of the Middle East, where Christian populations have been in secular decline. What about the West Bank? An outfit called the Philos Project notes that the Christian population in the West Bank has declined precipitously since 1948. This population has dwindled from 10% to 1%. What are the big factors here? Well, Christians are facing persecution from Islamist extremist groups. Christian population in the West Bank have nearly disappeared for many of the same reasons they're disappearing in the broader region: harassment, violence, discrimination, and a lack of economic opportunities. According to a 2020 survey by the Philos Project and the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, 40% of Palestinian Christians surveyed indicated that they feel that Muslims do not wish to see them in Palestine. 44% feel that there's discrimination against Christians when seeking employment. 50% describe their economic situation as bad or very bad. About 30% have been called a non-believer or a crusader by Muslims. Clearly, Carlson is comprehensively hiding the ball from his viewers. Now, why is he doing this? Obviously, he wants to fundamentally reorient the U.S. Foreign policy away from Israel, a pro-Western state that shares our values, and toward states that are hostile and or illiberal, like Russia or these Persian Gulf kingdoms that he is so fond of. For Carlson, the West is fundamentally corrupt, and a symptom of that corruption is our relationship with Israel. What he is advancing here is really a radical project in the literal sense that is striking at the roots, or one of the roots, of U.S. foreign policy and wants to sever our relationship with a Jewish people whose story is so crucial to Western history and Western culture. But it tells you all you need to know about the merits of this project, that Carlson himself feels compelled to advance it through rank distortions and deceptions. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.